You said to me this year is probably the most profitable place your business is going to be in. Who have you had to be for this shift to happen?
I have had to be incredibly brave. It's like horses when they have those blinkers on. I was letting that pressure completely paralyze me and stop me. Showing up to do the launches, to try the things with the risk that I might fail, those are the things that scare me. We fear all these things that really do not matter. I took a big risk in 2023 when I was trying to keep my company looking like it was absolutely fine. I've spent too much money and I don't have it in business. To get me out of a hole, I will get myself out of the hole. Everybody knew every photo I ever had in a photo shoot, I'm holding a glass. I want you to ask yourself, is it going to make the boat go faster? Is this getting you closer to the thing that you want? Yes, I might have been showing up confident. What was going on in my head was not that. It was like, who the hell are you? What are you doing? You're a disgrace.
Don't Work Harder is the show for entrepreneurs who are ready to catapult their business forward, because we believe it's not about working longer, harder, or smarter. It's about those braver moments. One bold move is worth 1,000 small steps. So rather than those small incremental movements that are moving you forward at a much slower pace, we're going to share with you the stories of successful entrepreneurs who've taken those big, bold steps to move them forward. This show is brought to you by Atomic, and I'm your host, Simon Randauer, and I'm here not only to share with you the stories of entrepreneurs and the success that they've had, but you'll also walk away with the insights of what they did at that exact moment when they made that change that moved their business forward. Hi, Teresa.
Hi.
I've just made you giggle, so we've probably started this podcast looking like, why
too
are they
smiley, too happy.
Sorry, we just had a little giggle. Really great to see you, and thank you so much for being here. Now, as you know, the premise of this podcast is don't work harder, work braver. Mm-hmm. And you've been in business for, 10 years now? Nearly 10 years?
Coming up to 11.
Yeah, coming up to 11, 20 years in marketing.
Yep.
And what I found really interesting as we've kind of been speaking over all the time that we've known each other is, despite all of the amazing work you've done, you said to me this year is probably the most profitable place your business is going to be in.
Yeah.
In the last 3 years. Now, we're talking about a time where a lot of people are worrying about, are people spending? Is this the right time to have my own business? So I guess the question that I want to ask you is, who have you had to be in order for this shift to happen?
Oh, that is a great question.
I've gone in big.
You have. Yeah. Let's start easy.
Yeah.
And ironically, I have had to be incredibly brave.
Okay.
Incredibly focused. Not even from a hustle point of view, but from a head down, it's like horses when they have those blinkers on. That's how I've had to be. I've had to have my head down, stay in my lane, do my thing, and just completely, everything's a test. This is my kind of line for the year. Everything's a test.
That's an interesting era to feel like you're in.
Mm-hmm.
And so how did you know that you needed to focus more? Because you're already known as being, a successful 6-figure entrepreneur. I think you're the only person who's ever been on the Atomic on stage every single year.
Yeah.
So, I know you as a fellow coach in Mavericks.
Yeah.
You've built this business empire. How did you know that you needed focus?
I think we change constantly. Our business changes constantly. We change. And I think when it came to this year, I had so much change in my world, so much change, even in the business, from what I was doing even 3-4 years ago to what I'm doing now, which is weird because in one way I've been so consistent. I've shown up consistently. I've done the same thing and talked about the same stuff, but I've slightly digressed into different areas.
Okay.
And I guess a lot of things have dawned on me about not only my personal life and situation of how that's affected me show up in my business, but also how I've shown up in the business, or how the business has shown up and what I'm known for and what people will actually pay me for. So I joke that I've built my business on people liking me, which I love. Honestly, I could not be happier that is the case. I'm a people pleaser. I like to be liked. However, I can't grow my business on that, or I can, but very, very slowly. Whereas getting super clear this year has enabled me to move faster with more confidence.
Okay, like this is literally the goal that people are going to want to know then. So I know you as being the marketing expert that helps people get more visible, like launch strategies, course creators, coaches. I know that's all your world. What, as well as knowing you as Smiley Teresa, probably the most smiley persona that I know, like in the coaching world.
I'll take that.
Yeah, that's yours. So what is it then that you want to be really known for? Like as we, like particularly 11 years in business, so you must be thinking about like, what's the legacy that I'm building here? So what do you want to be known for doing in people's business?
I think what you just said was right, but I think that's come this year, maybe a little bit of last year.
Okay.
So I started almost 11 years ago, and weirdly, I moved into the online space fairly quickly. I started helping people launch memberships, launch courses, run coaching programs, and I loved it. And then I wanted to help everybody, and I was my own worst nightmare. Like, if as a marketer, I would tell someone, you can't market to everybody. And that's exactly what I was trying to do, because I loved helping people and I wanted to help people.
It's interesting.
So I was just basically marketing to everybody and trying to help everybody. Then I digressed into coaching and got a coaching certification and thought I was going to go so hard down the mindset route. And then my life turned on its head. And as I've come out the other end, I've gone, no, this is what I'm always meant to do. I started doing this. And it's kind of frustrating in a way, because I think back in 2016, maybe 2018, around there, I actually spoke. My first event in the States was for Lead Pages, who are a landing page builder. And I spoke at their conference about a webinar funnel, which is like, if I had just hung on to that and stayed in my lane, my business would look even more successful than it does today. But I didn't. I digressed. I went into these other things. And then it's almost like I've woken up and I have a much clearer head now. And with the much clearer head I have, I've gone, no, this is what I love. Like, just actually on the way coming to this recording, I was on the train and I was putting together a spreadsheet template for my people that work with me on the numbers for when they're launching, like how many people are signing up to their webinars or their challenges, how many people bought their upsell, how many people bought the cross sell, how many people, what percentage of their email, like, and that is where I geek
You're
out.
lighting up.
Like, I literally love this stuff.
Yeah.
And I love helping people take their launch specifically and tweaking it and going, what if we just did this? What if we just did that? And that's where I think this year I've taken the kind of strain off myself, because there is a big problem with having a business for 11 years and being so well known in my own space that I am known in, is that there's a lot of pressure. When I first started, no one knew me. I had no pressure. Didn't matter whether I did a webinar that no one turned up to, which I have done one where one person turned up back in the day. It doesn't matter whether no one bought. It wouldn't matter. None of those things mattered. It's so much harder now because people are watching. And not only are they watching, but I teach this thing.
Right.
So if I don't do well, then that not only says, well, okay, she's maybe not as impressive as I thought, but also she's teaching this stuff and she can't do it. So I think up until maybe the beginning of this year, I was letting that pressure completely paralyze me and stop me. Whereas now it's like, because I am testing everything's a test, and I'm just able to go, let's try it, and then let it go if it doesn't work.
We're going to take a short pause to hear from one of our sponsors. Sponsors help us make the best show possible. Don't Work Harder is sponsored by Constant Contact, the digital marketing platform built with small business owners in mind. With Constant Contact, you can grow your contacts list, send out more emails, organise social media and events, and simply get more done with their advanced automation tools. It's everything you need to grow your business, advance your automation, and attract more of the right customers all in one place. Visit constantcontact.com to get started. And I think that's such an interesting point, because I want to break down like some of this. So that kind of all eggs are not in one basket. I'm
Yeah.
going to do this. I'm going to try it. I'm going to experiment. You've said that I'm going to look at the data.
Yes.
And then I get to decide if I'm doing more of this or what I'm moving on to next.
Yeah.
So if we break that down, one of the things that you were just saying is that you, starting out, there was a time where if nobody bought or if nobody or if not many people turned up on the webinar, nobody would really know.
No.
However, you grew from there to where you are now. So before we talk about kind of where you are now, what was it, or what do you teach people that's really important when you don't sell out or when you don't fill all your spaces? What does it mean? What did it mean to you?
Back then, even though I didn't see it as a test, I think then everything was new, so it was fine.
Yeah.
I think my job now and how I help people now is, one, for me to educate them as to what is not typical, but what can be expected, because I think there's some very crazy stuff that goes around that, like, you put a launch on, you create a course, and suddenly you're sitting on a beach somewhere making millions. And yes, that is possible, but that is not the thing that happens to most people.
Yeah.
So I think the first thing is being very realistic for them. I wasn't realistic in the early days. I watched and went to these big people and were like, okay, so when's that going to happen? And it's really easy to become disheartened, to think you're the problem, to think it's never going to happen. But the thing is, and what I'm trying to do is balance motivation and inspiration with a bit of reality, because I want to motivate them. I want to inspire them and go, no, you can have this. You can have an online business that works for you and is brilliant. However, there are some numbers that I would expect for most people when they launch. And one of the things that I do the most is when I look at people who I work with, their numbers, that I have to say to them, that is right. That is typical, because they're coming off the back of it devastated, thinking there's something wrong with them. There's something wrong with what they've done. And it's not.
And what kind of numbers would they be? So around what particularly?
So if you take your email list and then you take your launch list. So your launch list is the number of people who signed up for your launch experience. Okay.
Yeah.
So when I say launch experience, I mean a webinar, a challenge, a boot camp,
so
whatever
the whole email
it is you choose.
sequence.
Yes. So basically, how many people have opted in to take part in whatever that experience is?
Yeah.
So there's one number between your email list and your launch list. Off the top of my head, I think anything between 15 and 30% of your list could sign up for your launch list. So that's the first thing, right? So someone has a list of 1,000 people. Well, if they get 15% signed up, you've got 150 people. So they might be going, well, why haven't all of my lists signed up? Because they're not going to.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing. Then the number of people who sign up to the number of people who turn up. So back in the day, a turn-up rate used to be 50, 60%. So if you did a webinar, you had 100 people, you could expect 50 to 60 people. Now it's probably more like 30 to 40, 50 if you're lucky. And then that turn-up rate has a big impact on how many people actually buy.
Sure.
And when you take your launch list, between 1 and 8% are likely to buy. Now, that 1 and 8% can be wildly different, right?
Sure.
Like for 100 people, you got 1 or you're selling 8. So if you're selling it for £1,000, that's a big difference in what you could make. The thing that is so frustrating for me to watch is where people try something and they go, this doesn't work, and they just give up. Whereas my thing is, let me see what you've done, and then let me tweak that. Then let's run it again. Let's see the results.
Right.
And if I can see an improvement, brilliant. Tweak it again, run it again. And that's what people aren't doing enough. And I think that's a lot to do with the industry's fault. The industry have gone, this is really easy, obviously, because they're trying to sell stuff to people. So we are going to go, look at these results that someone got. And it took me, that's another thing that's changed, actually. It took me a long while to feel confident to do that, because I was so anti the kind of bro marketing, the do this one thing and you can make millions, because I knew by this point I'd been through it enough, and I had not only been through it myself enough, I had witnessed it and I'd taken clients through it to know that this wasn't as easy as people were making out. And for me, it was just a case of like, I want people to know that there is a possible to have a success, but it's not quite at that level, or it's not as easy as you think. So the more people I can help with launches, the more people I can get stats from, and then I can give them the courage to go, run it again.
So tell me what's really interesting. Like, as I'm listening to you, I'm like, I can totally see Teresa here in her expertise mode. Like, even I'm sitting here thinking, oh, I need to speak to Teresa about all of my elements. How did you manage to find the time and the clarity to know that you needed to do it for yourself, particularly when you're serving loads of people? That's a lot.
I think it's my own success. That's what it is.
So it was your driver?
And I wouldn't say I'm money orientated, because I don't think I really am. I'm one of these people that I flipping love what I do. I geek out on this stuff. I watch people's launches. I go through their funnels just for fun. Like, I nearly bought a course for £2,000 just to see
Just for fun.
what their cross-sell was. And then I was like, no, that's quite a lot of money to spend just to see someone's cross-sell in their funnel, right? So I love this stuff. However, I think for me, I wasn't making as much money as I knew I could make.
Okay.
And I've coached other people and I've supported other people who have made considerably more money than I have. In fact, lots of people, you know, I've worked with some big people in the industry and they make more money than I do. And there was a sudden realization of like, well, why is that the case? And it was weird because I talked to certain people and they'd be like, why aren't you not making more money? Now, let's just put it in perspective. I make over 6 figures.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's not nothing. And I'm not sat here going, that's nothing. So if someone is watching or listening to this going, well, I'm only making 5 figures, then what she's saying, that's not what I'm saying at all. For where I am in my industry, for how visible I am, for how, and this sounds really egotistical to say, but how well respected I am.
Yeah.
And for my level of knowledge, because I have a huge amount of knowledge. There was a part of me that's like, why have I not earned more? Now, I can happily understand why I'm where I am. And that was kind of what I was saying. I started in the online space. I then moved into, hey, everyone, I can help you because I know marketing because I've done a degree in it and 10 years before my business. And then I moved into the coaching and then I'm coming back. So it makes perfect sense why I have the money I have.
Yeah.
But this year was like, enough now, let's go.
And so what was the first thing that you did? So you had this realization. It sounds like it was probably there in the background. Mm-hmm. You knew you were doing fine. Obviously, profile wise, you're still on the biggest stages. You're still filling out your programs. What was the very first thing you needed to do?
Get out my own way.
Okay. What does that look like in business then?
Just getting on with it. So we're launching something like 7 times this year. And literally every few weeks we're doing something. And that feels, it's funny. I was about to say it feels crazy, but it doesn't. It actually feels ace. It feels really good. And I think also, and this is like a really vulnerable thing to admit to, but admitting that paying attention to where I was and not where my visibility was or my ego, right?
Yeah.
So when I tell people what I earn, and obviously I don't tell loads of people, but there's been a few people I'm working with, some coaches that are in the online space. And when I tell them what I turn, they're like, what? Is that it? And like I said, this is ridiculous. It's over 6 figures. But for me and my level, they are really surprised. And I think I finally got to the point where I was like, I'm not selling enough. I am not telling people what I do enough. I'm not showing people the transformation, which is a massive problem that everyone has. Mm-hmm. People are not saying, I had a call just yesterday with someone and she said, I don't know what I do. I don't think I'm very good. And I said, tell me about a client that you've got. And she told me about this client. And I said, and she was saying they want to up the hours and they wanted to do more stuff. And I was like, and do you think they're doing that because you're terrible? No, you are doing something. And she had trouble attaching, which was totally where I was at, attaching someone's success with my work. So for instance, I helped some people launch their membership. And in fact, I've done this 2 or 3 times with different clients actually. And one guy launched and had like 160 people straight off the bat.
Wow.
Another 2 people launched, they had like 200-300, I can't remember, but it was hundreds straight off the bat. And I never talked about it, right? I never shared it. I never said anything. Because in my head, the reason they did that was because their audience, because they had an audience.
Yeah.
I couldn't go, I had a part to play in that. And now I can.
Interesting. So you yourself were even feeling like you couldn't take the responsibility for other people's success.
Yeah, because I think because of the bro marketing thing, I had gone so anti it. Like,
okay,
I had seen webinars where they had gone and like friends had messaged me at the time going, oh, did you see that? They said that basically they did their first ever launch and they only had a list of 150 people and they sold £30,000. And it's like, you don't know the details.
No.
You don't know. I'm not saying they're lying because these people aren't lying. I'm confident of it. They're telling, there's a marketing agency in the UK. I don't know if they started this tagline. This was many, many years ago. But their tagline was a truth well told. And I love it.
It's context, isn't it?
Because it is, right? And that was my problem. I was so anti it that instead of taking what I needed and using the bits that sat authentic with me, I just went, I can't use any of it. So things like I always had an open cart on my membership. I didn't use bonuses. I didn't do that because it felt like horrible. And then I realized it's not the tactics, it's not the strategies, it's the intention behind them. Okay. So my intention behind the strategies I use are good. They are kind and thoughtful and not salesy or sleazy at all. They are good strategies that I recommend people use, and I'm going to use them myself. Yes, there are strategies that, or they are strategies that other people use that I don't like the way they use them, but the intent that they're using them is different to me.
Yeah, and intent is so key.
And I think that's what's changed. I think for me, I just didn't want to be anything like them. I just wanted to be as far from them as possible. So I almost went into like I never told anybody what I did. I never shared the transformation. I never shared testimonials. I built a 6-figure on people liking me, which was ace because people worked with me and they didn't know what they were coming for. And then I think, well, this was probably a couple of years back now. I was talking to someone who had been in my world for a long time and she'd bought small things, but like I had a good program and she'd never bought the big program. And I had a conversation with her and she told me about buying this program from this guy that I knew she'd only just found. And it was like a lot of money. And I was like, can I just ask, like in a really kind of vulnerable way, why didn't you buy from me? Why did you buy from him? And she said, well, he proved and he said he could do it. And I was like, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing it enough. But it's taken a while for me to get confident and comfortable with it. And there are some people that have left my world and don't like it. And that's okay. That's fine.
So it feels like the bravest thing that you've done with your business that has actually allowed you to be more profitable is owning it.
Yeah.
Is owning the results are attributed not just to the clients who do the work, but to yourself as well.
And having that confidence that, and
it's crazy after 11 years to think that you still, or we still have to work on confidence.
100%. And like, I literally have a degree in marketing. I spent 10 years, I worked for huge companies. I worked for teeny tiny companies. I've done every type of marketing you can imagine. And yet I'm still working on it. And I don't think there's a saying that I stole probably from someone else that's a new level, new devil.
Yeah, I love that one.
And that is so true. So there are things that I will do that I will not even think about. Like, doesn't even worry me into my head. You and I had a conversation about the fact of I interview people on my podcast. This sounds awful because I do love my podcast, but now I don't have to worry about those people. I've interviewed some massive names. And the very first time I interviewed the big names, I was like, no one move in the house, no one breathe, everyone off the internet. You're not allowed the TV on.
No one breathe.
Read a book, like take the dogs out. Like I freaked out. Yeah. Whereas now I'll be like, did a podcast interview, see you later. Like, so there are things like that going live, standing on stages. I'm not going to say they don't bother me. I'm still nervous, which is good. I think it's good to still have nerves, especially speaking at Atomicon. I still get nervous. However, I love it. And it's not massively out my comfort zone. But showing up to do the launches, to try the things with the risk that I might fail or the risk that it might not look as impressive as other people might think it should look, those are the things that scare me. And also, I think you said something earlier and I had a kind of answer in my head of like, or I don't know whether you actually asked it, whether I thought you were going to ask it. Like one of the things that changed in terms of now was a case of not I'm running out of time, but enough is enough. I've been doing this for a long time. I remember speaking to my husband literally, God, years and years and years ago, probably 8 years ago, and selling him the online world, right? Telling him what these people have got. I mean, we are very fortunate. We are friends with some very successful online people. We've been to Amy Porterfield's house. We've been to Michael Hyatt's lake house. We see it. We literally tangibly see what these people have built on their online businesses. And it almost felt like I'm letting him down. That how many more chances can I say I'm going to be successful at this? And when am I finally going to be successful? And it's kind of sad because I am successful, but I have a level that I want to get to. It's not to Michael's level and it's not to Amy's level, but there is definitely a level higher than where I'm at. And I have to know that I have played all out, because what's the point?
I mean, so deep and relatable on lots of levels. And I know we'll probably unpack this a little bit more. You have an ambition to do the best you can do. And I think you talk about balance a lot. And I know balance is really important to you. Anyone who follows like Teresa's world, Teresa's loves gardening, don't you? You love your gardening. And, you know, we'll talk a bit about your travel and some of the incredible places that your business has allowed you to go. But before we go there, so you decide this is it. Yeah. Like, I mean, it sounds like you were almost being tough on yourself. How many more chances are there? And there'll be people who are listening to this who are thinking, I would dream of having a profitable 6-figure business.
Yeah.
However, I think it is a reminder that when you get to the next level in your business, there are new challenges that you will face.
Yeah.
Because also what got you there isn't what's going to get you to the next level. So the first thing that I've picked up is that you realized that you needed to have a regular launch cycle.
Yes.
What else did you do that has allowed you to get to this point in the year where you're like, this is going to be my most profitable year in the last 3 years at least? What else did you need to put in place? So you talk a lot about yourself personally, and I think we'll go there. But in terms of tangible business, what did you do?
Relentless with list building.
Okay. So nurturing that audience.
Constantly bringing people on.
That's a really key point, isn't it?
Like, if you are not, and this is something that I do when anybody buys something from me, or they're in one of the group coaching programs or in Grow, Launch, Sell, they come into what we call T's world. And it's funny, it's just something I say that people are in my world.
Yeah.
And so we have a community called T's world, and we're running a challenge as we speak about getting visible. So literally every single day, I'm giving them something to do, as small as go and put your lead magnet on your stories, go and put your lead magnet on your post, literally do a reel and tell people why they want to get on your email list.
Tell them
what value are you doing?
Yeah.
And this is as much for the people I work with as for me. Because again, I don't know whether it's our ego or what it is, but we think we get to a certain point and we don't have to do that stuff anymore. But we do. And we still need to keep showing up. So for me, I am doing things like summits. I did my own summit last year, which was a beast, but it was awesome. And that brought like 2,000 people onto my list in one go.
Wow.
I go on other people's summits. You can't always tell what's a great summit and what's a not.
Yeah.
So you kind of just have to go with it.
You've got to experience them, don't you?
Totally.
Yeah, and then you know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then you know the people who are brilliant, and therefore you keep applying to go on their summits. I am doing things like sponsoring stuff. The speaking is big for me. We're running ads for things. Like, the list building has to be relentless. Every single week, if you are listening to this, I want you to say to yourself, what did I do this week that actively built my email list?
So you talked about ads.
Yep.
So things that would grow your email list. So picking through what you said. So we talked about ads there.
Yep.
Visibility, which is
other people's podcasts.
Yeah.
So this is a great example.
Yeah, welcome.
Because, obviously I know the Atomic audience pretty well anyway for being Atomic on, but there are definitely going to be people who don't know me who might listen to this and go, she sounds okay. I like what she's saying. They might come over and listen to my podcast and then eventually might get on my list. So again, some of these strategies they feel a bit slower and longer, but doing them constantly pays off dividends. So other people's podcasts, other people's memberships and groups. So if anybody, and I think this is the other thing that's interesting, because we've had a conversation about this in the past of like, what people's opinions of you are, of like how, whether they can come and talk to you, whether they could ask you to be on the podcast. Like, I will say yes to anything.
And I think we should share this. I think this is really interesting because I had known Teresa for about 3 years. No, actually for about 2.
Okay.
But it probably took the third occasion of meeting you to be able to come and say hello, which I know might be surprising people. They're like, she seems quite confident. But we talk about perception, and yet we spoke that the last event that we met at.
Yeah.
And it was like, I couldn't stop. And once I'd started speaking to you, I realized just how open and how accessible you are. Now, I think that's a really interesting point because you are so likable, you are so well known, but you just picked up on something there, which is you said that not people who don't know you don't always realize how approachable you are.
No.
Why do you think that is? Where have they got that from?
I think that is a bit me, not on purpose, but like, my whole thing was like, okay, I need to elevate myself. I need to get on the bigger stages. I need to be seen with the bigger people. So I think part of that is like, because I've pushed myself into that world, and I pretty much did, maybe because they're seeing that, they're thinking.
Of course.
And honestly, other than that, I don't know, because I am exactly who I am.
You are.
I'm as like stupid and open and vulnerable and laugh as much as I do on anything. And like, I genuinely love doing anything like speaking and podcasts and training. Like, and anybody, I remember someone interviewed me on a live, this was quite a while back now, and she messaged me going, oh, so-and-so asked me how I got you on. And I was like, you asked? Like, just ask the question. Like,
but I think
that's
a great tip in itself. And you just spoke there about when you were talking about, let people know what's for sale. Just like that communication, that letting people know what's for sale, but also asking the question, because what's the worst that can happen?
And this is something I say in my world all the time.
What is the worst that can happen?
They can say no, that's it.
Or they could ignore you.
You didn't die.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I have something in I'm always very conscious when I say this because this is very personal to me.
Okay.
But when I say what's the worst that can happen, the 2 worst things that could happen in my world right now is I die or I got pregnant.
Okay.
Right? I'm 46. I have a teenager and teenage stepkids, 2 dogs and a husband. I do not want a baby. That would literally ruin my life right now.
Okay.
And dying would literally ruin my life right now as well. So as long as those 2 things can't happen, then really what is the problem? And you know what's funny? And I don't want to get like deeper into it, but like, I was watching something about the world or the planets and sometimes we have to remember that we are this tiny speck on a
deep,
planet.
but I love it. Yeah.
Floating in the middle of a universe.
So true.
No one is, and the people who are looking and going, oh, look, Teresa didn't do that very well. Or, oh, look, she failed at that. Oh man, they probably need to get a hobby, because I'm not doing that about other people, because like I said, we are a tiny speck on a planet. And then what's the point? Like, why wouldn't we try it? And the people who are often our loved ones, although weirdly, my husband isn't like this. He is like, if anything, he would push me more into doing stuff. But like the people who go, oh, I wouldn't do that, or that's taking a risk, or that, they wouldn't even do it or try it in the first place.
Exactly.
Like, as long as I can't lose my house.
Yeah.
Okay. Like, and this is a genuine question I have with people. When they come to me and they're like, it's not working, we're struggling, whatever, I go, where are we at? Are we going to lose your house? Like, are we talking mortgage money? Because if we're talking mortgage money, my advice is going to be very different to you, because you need to make money. If we're talking confidence, or we're talking, I want more money, then I will give you different advice based on that. So I never want anyone to take a risk. I never want them to put themselves into big trouble. But like, we fear all these things that really do not matter. Like, they really don't.
So talking about risks then, and your own business, because 11 years, like that's an incredible amount of time to have a business running.
Yeah.
What has felt like the riskiest time in your business if we look back over those 11 years?
Oh man, many. So starting it, for one.
Okay.
Single mum, mortgage, no partner, no one rich in my life that could help me out. Had to bring in £1,500 a month from day one, or literally couldn't pay my mortgage.
Okay.
I don't recommend people do that, obviously, but I did. I found myself in that situation, and I started my own business and took a massive risk. But I think if I hadn't have had that, I wouldn't be sat here now for sure. Second risk, or second biggest risk, was firing my clients. So after about a year or two, I had built up a business, a really good, quick business, which was amazing. And I think we were hitting 6 figures already. And I brought a team on, and we were doing done for you services for clients. And I then decided, this online thing looks flipping ace. Like, I want to do this online thing.
Okay.
And I spoke to my husband and said, how would you feel if I fired the clients I've got and literally reduced my income to hardly anything? And he, I was going to say, luckily said yes, but we've always kept things very separate. So as long as I can pay my way, then there's, but
you obviously
he knew,
value his ear.
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
And he obviously knew there were things that maybe I had paid for and things we had done that maybe would have had to have changed. So that was another time. I paid out for hugely expensive things. My first coach was 15 grand and I nearly vomited.
It's a big number when you start, isn't it?
Yeah. Like, my stepson has just bought a car for I think it was $2.5 grand or something. Like, I could have bought him several cars.
You could have,
for a coach. Like, it is a massive amount of money, but I did, and I took the risk, and it paid off in that case. I've also paid a very similar amount of money for something else in a group setting, and it didn't pay off. And I'm not going to say I regretted it, because you learn, but I'm a bit bummed that I spent that money, but I learned, and I won't do that again. I took a big risk in 2023 when I was trying to keep my company or the business looking like it was absolutely fine, and therefore paying for my team, even though I wasn't bringing the money in.
So that's interesting.
Yeah.
Because when you get to a certain stage in your business, obviously there's loads of things that need to be run. So I'm imagining, what kind of things were your team doing for you?
So the podcast, for one.
Okay, so like producing it.
So that's a whole host of different things. The social stuff, just even organising. We probably get 2 to 3 applications a day.
Wow.
For guests.
Okay.
And as you would imagine, a lot of them are no's because we don't interview that many people. So even just processing that, things like my emails that go out regularly, things like managing the calls I was doing in my membership.
Okay.
Setting up all of that. So I probably had back then 4 or 5 people that were in the team, not full time.
Yeah. Which is a cost.
Which is a big cost.
Yeah.
And all the systems I use, you'd got to a certain point where I literally, and I did, don't get me wrong, I did look at my outgoings and was like, how can I reduce them? But there was literally only so much I could do. So not only was I not able to reduce, and especially not the team at that point, because I needed them to keep going when I couldn't, but also I was bringing less money in because I was showing up less and I was doing less. So what I should have done is pull it all in, but I didn't want to do that because I couldn't explain that away. So I just ran it like it was. And then we got to the kind of the end of 2023, 2024. And then I had to go, oh crap, I've spent too much money and I don't have it in the business. And I remember speaking to my accountant and him going, how much tax do you want to pay? I mean, he didn't actually say how much tax you want to pay, but I was like, I don't. And he's like, what do you mean you don't? I went, I haven't got it. I haven't got the money.
I haven't been putting it away like I was meant to.
No, because A, I was rubbish at that, just so you know.
Yeah.
I am better now. But B, money always came because I was always working, but it wasn't coming because I wasn't working as much. And then basically I just hadn't got the money. And then he said to me, okay, well, I can get it, if I move this and do this, I can get it to this. I was like, right, do you want paying? And he was like, yeah. I went, well, you're going to have to bring it down a bit more than, aren't you? It was bad. It was really bad.
So what did you do at that stage? So it sounds like what you were saying is the business wasn't profitable. So the money was coming in.
Yeah.
But it wasn't.
It was all going out and some.
So what did you have to do?
When I could think straight, that was the first thing. I reduced what I could. So I did make changes into the team. I stopped things. Things stopped naturally, which was really kind of convenient.
Yeah.
I didn't replace them.
Okay.
So like I had someone do social media, that stopped naturally because of her, and I didn't replace that.
Yeah.
That was an absolute luxury I could not afford at that point. I pulled in everything that I could. But again, I didn't go all out, because at that point, if you imagine, I've probably never felt so disappointed, and I don't know what the word is. I've probably never felt so ashamed, just jumped in my head. And I think that's too strong a word, but I'm going to go with it, about where my business was and that I hadn't got the money. And again, there was my husband, and that's always, and he says very little in that case. But in my head, I was kept going back to me coming into the online space and going, look at what I'm going to build. And I was in an even worse position than I ever had been.
You feel that sense of responsibility, don't you? Because actually we have this idea of we're going to run our own business.
Yeah.
But there are other people that are going to be impacted by the decisions that we make.
Yeah.
So you got to that point in your business. You said you naturally, your overheads did reduce because some people left. How do you balance that with then suddenly needing to do more yourself and still living a balanced life? How does that work?
So I talk about seasons.
Yeah.
So depending on what season of life you're in. So when I started my business, I was a single mum to a 4-year-old. That's a very different season to what I'm in now. Some people might be moving into the seasons where they're having to look after elderly parents or teenagers or whatever it is. Whereas the way I justify that is, for that season, when I came out of it, I had to work my bum off. And I'm all right with that, right? I have no problem with us having to work hard. And I have no problem. I'm not a big fan of the whole hustle thing. And I do, I want a balance. But for a season, it's fine. Brilliant. To get me out of a hole, I will get myself out of the hole. And I will work as hard as I need to work. I will do all the things I need to do. And I'm still in that season, I would say. Yeah. Like there is still the balance, but because I am in this kind of testing phase and experimenting phase, I am doing a lot, and we are doing it on a small team compared to what I used to have. And everyone's pulling their weight. Everyone's working really hard. Everyone knows what we're doing, where we're focusing, like what the end goal is. And it's working. But I think for me, it was about, just focusing in, knowing that I need to not get through this next. That's not the case, because I'm enjoying it and I'm loving it.
Yeah.
But I'm also, if I need to take some time, I take some time. If I want to sit in the garden all weekend and plant seeds, I sit in the garden and plant seeds. But I am happy to have seasons of busyness. What I don't want, and what I don't want anybody else to do, is to constantly be in that season of I am fighting because something is wrong there. I have a very good reason. I wasn't bringing in enough money. I was spending too much money. I have a perfect reason why I got in the position I got in. And now I'm in the season that's getting me out of it and is out of it. But this busyness will eventually, once we work out what's working, what we love, what is easy, what is not easy, then we will get into a more, not slower season, but a less busy season.
So when we think about what that looks like, you said the word focus. So in order to structure your week, so let's say someone's listening in, they're feeling like, okay, I'm in the season where I'm doing all of the things. I'm busy, but I'm still not seeing the results, where I can almost hear you talking about this metamorphosis that's happening and all these changes that are happening in your life that we'll get to speak about. But what does that focus look like? So what do you have to do in the week? Does that mean working from 8 a.m. till 8 p.m. at night?
No, because I'm in bed at 8 p.m. at night.
Okay, Teresa.
Not even kidding.
Okay.
I'm an early bird.
Right.
So I wake up normally anywhere between 5 and 6.
Okay.
And I will do my morning stuff, like my meditation and my tapping and all that other stuff that I do.
Yeah.
And then I probably sit at my desk from about 7, 8.
Okay.
I will work all day until 5 or 6.
Okay.
But if the sun's shining,
Yeah.
I will go and sit outside, or I won't work for a bit. Or it looks like, for me, there's a book which weirdly I've never read, but I talk about it all the time.
I love this, yeah.
To do with the British rowing team. And I think it's just called, Does It Make the Boat Go Faster?
I love this quote from you. Yeah.
Like, and this is it, right? So
Yeah.
I took it from that book. So basically the premise of it, even though I've never read it, is that they had a new coach. The British rowing team were terrible. They had a new coach come in, and the coach basically said to them, everything you do, whether you're here in practice or not, I want you to ask yourself, is it going to make the boat go faster? So if they went out on a Friday night and got drunk, is that going to make the boat go faster? Probably not. If they wanted to eat something terribly, is that going to make the boat go faster? Probably not. And then I have a friend, a very amazing friend, who basically rode the ocean from, like, I am terrible at this geography, but like almost Spain to Antigua. Okay. And she came and did a talk in one of my online events I did. And she was talking about, they're on the ocean for like 70 days straight or something insane, like never getting more than 2 hours sleep at any one time because they were having to swap into rowing. Right. And their thing was, anything we do, will it get us closer to Antigua? They actually won the women's race.
Wow.
But will it get close to Antigua? So like when they had barnacles on the bottom of the boat and they stopped rowing to go in the water and clean the bottom of the boat, is that going to get us close to Antigua? Well, yes, because if that's going to slow us down.
Brilliant advice.
So for me and everyone in my world, is this getting you closer to the thing that you want? Is this making your boat go faster? Is this getting you close to Antigua? So I am, like, literally to the point where I will scroll Instagram on occasions. I am pretty strict myself. And then I will say out loud to myself, is this making the boat go faster? No, it's not. Stop it. And I will stop and move on to something else. But it stops me procrastinating, stops me wasting my time on stuff that's pointless. It gives me, it's that kind of back to that kind of single focus, narrow-minded, blinkers on. Like, and I think there's a time for that. I think there's a time for when you need to test and try and do different things and move in different directions, which I have done in my business. This season is not that. This season is all roads. So again, we have another saying in my business at the moment, all roads lead to GLS. So GLS is my grow, launch, sell program.
Amazing.
And all roads lead to GLS. So everything we're doing with the ultimate aim of getting people in GLS. So that's the way I think about it. That's how I stay focused.
And I can feel the drive. Like, and you know, and again, you're really lighting up when you speak about this. And you know, I touched on this earlier. It feels like this period in your life, and you've spoken about it, it's a period of metamorphosis. So I know you have a business podcast.
Yes.
You also have a personal podcast.
Yes.
Which is called, am I right, Losing Part of Me?
Yes.
And if anyone hasn't listened to it, just listen to the title music. That was enough to have me. I hadn't even listened to it. And I was like grabbing the tissues going, oh God, I can feel this. And I've listened to a few episodes, as you know. What does that title mean to you personally? Because what I'm hearing in your business is you are describing someone that is reclaiming and growing and moving into this incredibly exciting next era. So what personally does losing a part of me mean?
It means that's exactly how I felt. I felt that by going through, getting sober for me was like cutting my arm off. It was like a whole part of me that I was getting rid of.
So many people might not know about this. And Teresa, this is something you are comfortable speaking about.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So would you just tell us a little bit about how long has this been a journey that you've been on?
So it's really hard to kind of think when it started. So basically, trying to give you a little bit of a time frame, my mum passed away very suddenly about 5 years ago.
Okay.
4 or 5 years ago. And I had to kind of jump in and do the stuff as you do. My sister and I, were organising the things. And basically, it was a couple of months afterwards, and a friend of mine who is a coach, she said to me, I think you need therapy. And I was like, do you think? And I said, I don't feel great, but my mum did die. And she's like, I think you need therapy. So I started having therapy, and it was great and it was fine. It was very much aimed at my mum. except I used to have it on a Monday morning at 10 a.m. Okay. And I drank a lot. And as you'd imagine, on a weekend, it was way worse. So every Monday morning, I was hanging. And I basically went through 2 or 3 years of therapy before we could even bring it up. So my therapist knew for a very long time I had a problem. I suspected I had a problem, but was absolutely not okay to share it. I had read all these books. I had listened to these books and these podcasts. And I think now it kind of makes me laugh because it's like the fact that I was even listening to books about addiction kind of tells me I had a problem. Like if you're sat there going, I'm just going to listen to this book about addiction to find out if I've got a problem, kind of means you have got a problem. Or there's a fair chance you've got a problem. So I eventually started getting to the point where I could talk about, and of course it was easy to kind of bring it up because every Monday I'd be hanging, and also we had been enough in our relationship that she could start to question me. And one of the key pivotal things was my daughter did a week with me and a week with her dad. And on a Monday, I used to take her to the school bus and drop her off at the school bus, and I wouldn't see her then for a whole week. And I'd pick her up the following Monday. And I was so hungover, I couldn't get out of bed. Now, my daughter was taken to school or taken to the bus by my husband. And I got on my therapy call and I said, Paul let me lie in because I was really tired. I haven't been sleeping very well. And she was like, really? And I went, yeah. Really, Teresa? And I was like, yeah. She's like, no other reason. And I was like, because I was too hungover, I couldn't get up.
So you said it?
Yeah. And that spurred me on to try and stop in October of 2021. And I did about 20 days and thought I was fixed. Thought, done it. I can stop. I can, I can't be that bad. I managed to go 20 days. I'm fine. Literally gritting my teeth those 20 days, but I did it. And I was like, I'm fine. So of course I started again. And I remember having therapy going, but I want to drink. I like drinking. And it was my brand. Like, so when I say losing part of me, it really was. I used to go live on a Thursday with G&T with tea, where I would sit and have a gin and tonic live. Everywhere I went, people used to send me stuff, which is so sweet. But like I'd get gifts off people, I'd work with them, whatever. And it was always alcohol based. It was always gin. It was always like, because everybody knew every photo I ever had in a photo shoot, I'm holding a glass. And there was real alcohol. It wasn't a prop. Like I remember having a photo shoot at my house and I made a cocktail to drink while having this photo shoot. Like it was crazy. So basically it got to the point where it was coming up more and more and more and more. And we were realizing it was really quite a problem. I tried to speak to my husband about it while I was drunk one night, not ideal. No. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. You haven't got a problem. We haven't. And also I accused him of having a problem as well, because we used to drink very similar amount. And he's like, I haven't got a problem. I don't know what you're talking about. And then basically roll on some more time. I stopped in the October, like I said, for 20 days. I started again. And within 2-3 days, I was back to the level I was. And then I read a book called The Glorious Rock Bottom by Brian E. Gordon. And there's something in it that really shifted. One of the things that shifted was when she went into rehab, her therapist said to her, when you're an alcoholic or you have an addiction and you stop, it's like you're on a lift, right? So you start at the top where you're not too bad, and then it gets worse, and getting worse is going down in the lift. And what happens when you stop is you get off and you stand there. Now, what most people think happens, which is what I thought happened, is you went back to the top and you started again. And this guy said to her, no, you just stop. The minute you get back on that lift, you continue to go down. And that was a big one for me. And then my therapist read a book called The Realm of Hungry Ghosts by Gabor Mate. And she knew, obviously, I did a huge amount of personal development. I read all the books. And she said, I'm just finishing reading it. I want you to read it. And I said, okay. It was a really hard book. Gabor is a very intelligent man.
Yeah.
And I read the book, and he was talking about addiction, and he does stuff in downtown Vancouver with like heroin addicts and meth addicts, and it's really hardcore. And I remember reading it like, what is she talking about? Like, this isn't me. This isn't my life. And then it got to the bit where he explains his addiction, and his addiction is to buying classical music.
Interesting.
which feels like ridiculous,
Feels
doesn't
light,
it?
doesn't
Like,
it?
you know, that's not an addiction.
There's
What
worse
are you on
problems.
about?
Yeah.
And he talked through how his addiction showed up, and it was exactly the same. And also the other thing he talked about, which I loved, is the science based on what happens to our brains when we're younger and the reasons people have addiction and the reasons they turn to alcohol or drugs or whatever it is. And my therapist has been saying to me for years, it's not your fault. And I actually had said to her, if you say that to me, I'm going to use that against you. So when I come on this call completely hungover, I'm going to go, it's not my fault. And she's like, it's not your fault. And I'm like, yeah, okay. And then I read Gabor's book, and it finally dawned on me that it wasn't my fault. And at that point, I was able to have some empathy for myself, and I was able to feel sorry for myself, because up until that point, I was horrible to myself. I hated myself. I used to beat myself up on a regular basis because every day I promised myself, don't drink. And every day I drank. So I couldn't trust myself, which meant I couldn't show up fully in my business. I couldn't be confident about anything, even though anybody who knew before and now would go, she's the same. Yes, I might have been showing up confident. What was going on in my head was not that. It was like, who the hell are you? What are you doing? You're a disgrace. And I finally got to the point where I'm not going to be able to do this unless I stop, am I? Because I went to wine country in LA, and like, we love doing that sort of stuff. I drink champagne. Like, I love drinking champagne.
It was lifestyle. Yeah.
Totally. And I finally got to the point where I couldn't. I had to go, no, I have a problem. So I stopped on January the 2nd, 2023. Thought I was just going to do dry January. And within about 3-4 days, I realized if I start, I will never stop again.
Wow.
And I remember saying to my husband a few days in, I think I'm an alcoholic, and just burst into tears. And he said, you're not. He said, you don't drink in the morning. And I was like, no, I think I am. And then for the rest of 2023, I sat on the sofa and I watched Grey's Anatomy from the beginning again, third time, and basically only showed up where I had to show up because I couldn't function. It took every inch of me and every breath in my body to not drink, to literally and work out who the hell I was, because I didn't know me. I didn't know.
It's who you are without it.
And I am fun and I am funny and I smile a lot. And I was terrified. What if I'm boring? What if, like, we've all seen that, you know, Fun Bobby on Friends or whatever it is, like, he stops drinking, he's not fun anymore. That terrified me. And I couldn't tell anybody. No one knew. So my husband knew, my good friend Biz Paul knew, but he didn't know how bad I was. He produced my podcast, and as he was listening to every episode, producing it, he said, I didn't realize how bad you were. And he knew me. About, I don't know, 5 months in, I told a member of my family. I literally couldn't utter the words without bursting into tears because there was so much shame. And then eventually the shame started to go. There is still a little bit. Like, when I talk about my daughter and not being able to take her to school, and that feels a bit shameful. And when I think about some of the things, I remember going to some events. I was a speaker. I did every talk hungover, every talk. I was smashed the night before. Like, even when I was like, I'm going to be sensible, I just couldn't. And I had to basically go, who even are you? What does this look like? What do I do? I had no joy other than drinking and work. And my brain just turned off, didn't want to work, didn't want to do anything. I just wanted to sit on the sofa. And that's why the business just did a massive stall. And I am very grateful that it didn't fall off the cliff, because it could have done. And I am so grateful that my brain decided to turn back on again, because it wasn't a conscious decision. It wasn't right, pull yourself together. I was fighting to pull myself together. I literally couldn't. It wasn't working. I was able just about to show up and do the things I did. And with not many people knowing, no one knew when I was on the calls. I spoke on stages. I spoke at Atomicon. I pretended I drank so that people wouldn't question me, because it was so part of me that it would have been so weird for me not to drink. And B, people would have asked. They would have gone, why aren't you drinking? And I couldn't answer that question without literally bawling. Whereas now I can happily talk about it. I don't want to ever have it take over the business. I never wanted to be one of those people that was all people knew me for now. So I very purposely, that's why I did the 2 podcasts. That's why on my own business one, I said, this has happened. And the reason I'm sharing it here is because I am authentic and I do pride myself in being vulnerable, but I don't want to take up too much time over here. So here's another one, go and listen to this over here. And because it had helped me so much, because I had listened to other people, and for 2 days straight, I just replied to messages.
I bet so many people were reaching out.
It was amazing.
And for you to, so generously share that for the benefit of others is also, something that I think is going to be appreciated by so many people, because life does keep lifing. And I really appreciate the journey that you've taken us on, like kind of over this last, 45 minutes to an hour, where we've talked about the reality of growing a business, the challenges that come into place, what we have to do to turn things around, but also the fact that often there's something else in parallel that is running alongside it. And although we didn't get to speak about it until the end, it's almost like it explains where we were in the beginning. Teresa, I'm so grateful for how much you've shared with us. And I would love to know, because you've actually mentioned a few books. So we have a little bit of a tradition where we like to end by asking people, what are they watching, listening to, and reading?
Okay.
Do you have any shares for us?
Yes. So watching, I actually only really watch YouTube.
Okay.
So
it's like me and TikTok.
I either watch homesteading, so basically growing veg, keeping animals, like a small holding. That's my dream.
Wow. Okay.
So that's what I'm making my money for, so that I can buy some land and my husband and I can grow
Sounds like
vegetables.
a nice life. Yeah, I love that.
Very in contrast to what I do. But anyway, so I watch that, or I watch a lot of, I'm watching this great guy called Joe Hudson at the moment, who's a coach to Silicon Valley people on YouTube. He's amazing.
Great.
I am reading, in fact, I just started Dan Martell's book. I can't remember what it's called. Oh, Buy Back Your Time.
Brilliant.
So I just started that. And what was the other one? Listening.
So we've done, watching, I guess, was YouTube, listening and reading. Yeah.
So listening, I listen to, so I'm going to shout out my friend's podcast because it always makes me laugh. Humans Exhaust Me. So I don't listen to many podcasts anymore.
I like the sound of that already.
But it's very funny. So that's my kind of, I was going to say light entertainment, but sometimes it gets a bit heavy and then I have to message him and go, this is too heavy for me now. I've got to switch off.
I'm here for the fun.
But exactly. Can we have more funny things? So yes, that's what I'm listening to.
Amazing. Teresa, it has been an absolute pleasure speaking to you. Kind of sad that we have to stop, but should we maybe do a part 2?
I think we should.
Okay.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much for listening to Don't Work Harder. If you enjoyed the episode, please subscribe and share. This show has been brought to you by Atomic, the home of epic business growth. Head to our website at atomic.site to hear more about our business programs and epic events.